Krishna, Mother Urmila.
Hare Krishna.
My name is Rohini Priya. I'm a disciple of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, and I am your host for tonight.
Okay, thank you. We had the wrong link before.
They're trying to fix that right now. They're sending out the new links now.
Okay. I'm going to need permission to share my screen.
Sure.
So I guess since everyone has the wrong link, I should wait for a little bit.
Please. Thank you.
Sure.
Hare Krishna, Mother Urmila. Is it okay if I give a brief introduction of you before I start?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Hare Krishna. Today we have Mother Urmila Devi Dasi, also known as Dr. Edith Best, who's going to share some of her wisdom with us. Mother Urmila is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada since 1973. She's taught primary and secondary school for about 27 years. She was also in 1990 a K-12 school teacher in North Carolina and principal. I've met some of her students, they're brilliant. She holds the chair of Sastric Advisory Council to the GBC. She was formerly a professor of sociology of religion at Bhaktivedanta College. In 2010, she published Dr. Best's Learn to Read, a 3-volume set, which I taught my own son. It's a wonderful set. And she's also published other books, The Great Mantra for Mystic Meditation, and she's published a new edition of Sri Mana Shiksha by Raghunath Das Goswami. So please welcome her, and we'll now wait for her to grace us with her wisdom. We're very fortunate. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so what time do I have until? When should I end?
Well, it started late, so we were giving it an hour. So it's up to you if we take an hour at 8:22.
8:22, okay. Okay, so we're going to be looking at our longing for reciprocation, how Krishna reciprocates with his devotees. This is based on Srimad Bhagavatam, some of the verses from Canto 10, Chapter 32. This is where Krishna leaves the Ras dance and then rejoins the gopis. And in this particular section, we're going to be looking at 9 different kinds of relationships that we can have in this world and how Krishna is none of them and all of them. So we're going to start out with the sages in the Dandakaranya forest who saw Lord Ramachandra and decided that they wanted to be his consort. And Lord Ramachandra, having taken Eka Patni Vrata, taken a vow of only one wife, he said, no, I'm sorry, you can't be with me. But if you wait until I appear as Krishna, so then I am willing to accept all of you in that way. But of course, Lord Ramachandra appears a long time before Krishna, and so they had to wait a very long time. So also the personified Vedas saw Krishna's pastimes and wanted to join as gopis. And they also had to wait for the next cycle of Krishna's pastimes when other personalities took the form of the Vedas. So like the sages who were with Lord Ramachandra, they were also waiting many millions and billions of years. Finally, these devotees and many others who became perfect through sadhana took birth in Vraja as gopis. And even then, they had to wait to grow up. Krishna stole their clothing and they said, oh, when are we going to be accepted like your wives? And he said, another time, you'll have to wait. And so even when they were there in Gokula, Vrindavan, they were waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Finally, one full moon night in autumn, Krishna blew his flute. And each gopi thought that Krishna was only calling her with the flute. And so they left their homes and they went out to see Krishna. They finally were going to get to be with Krishna. We're going to get to see Krishna. We're finally going to get to be with him as his consorts. And they walked through the dark forests, so many wild animals, leaving their family, giving up their reputation. And they finally go to see Krishna, and he rejects them. He says, transcendental love for me arises by the devotional processes of hearing about me, seeing my deity form, meditating on me, and faithfully chanting my glories. The same result is not achieved by mere physical proximity, so please go back to your homes. So he rejected them. And they said, how can you reject us? We've been waiting for millions or billions of years. You said that we could be your consorts. You called for us. You called for us to come. And now you're simply rejecting us. They said, we're not going to go home. So finally, Krishna relented, and they started singing and dancing and laughing and walking through the forests of Vrindavan. But then Krishna disappeared, even from Srimati Radharani. The gopis started imitating Krishna's pastimes to give themselves solace. They went through the forest, following Krishna's footprints, trying to find where Krishna had gone. Radharani told the gopis how, because she was proud, Krishna had left her. And even though the moon was full and Krishna's footprints were there, they couldn't find him anywhere. Finally, they decided that if they kept looking, Krishna would keep running, and then he might hurt his feet on the stones. And so it was better just to stay in one place and wait for him and sing. Tava Katamrita And after they waited for him for a long time and practically were going crazy in his absence, suddenly he reappeared. So first we're going to look at verses 15 to 16. Now here the gopis may have been feeling, we've done everything, we've waited, and still Krishna took so long to come. Then he rejected us, told us to go home. Then after being with us, playing with us, he left us. And we may also sometimes feel like this, that we're doing everything we can for Krishna, but he's not there. Everything seems dry. And then there's moments when he's there, we feel some sweet reciprocation, and then they just vanish and we can't get them back again. And we see some other devotees, they do service like we do, and they're in ecstasy, and we don't know where Krishna is, and we may feel very lost and confused. So please stay muted, but if you can recite these verses along with me, but keep your microphones on mute, but we'll sing them together, not call and response. We'll sing them all at the same time, the Sanskrit, and then we'll say the English together. Sabhajait vitamananga deepanam sahasalilekshana vibrama bhuva samsparshananaka kitangri hastayo samstuchya ikshat kupita babashrashe. Sri Krishna had awakened romantic desires within the gopis, and they honored him by glancing at him with playful smiles, gesturing amorously with their eyebrows, and massaging his hands and feet as they held them in their laps. Even while worshiping him, however, they felt somewhat angry, and thus they addressed him as follows. Shri Gopya Uchu Bhajato Nu Bhajancheka Eka Eta Viparyayam No Vayamscha Bhajancheka Eta No Bruhi Sadhubho. The gopis said, some people reciprocate the affection only of those who are affectionate towards them, while others show affection even to those who are indifferent or inimical. And yet others will not show affection toward anyone. Dear Krishna, please properly explain this matter to us. So the gopis were asking one another, we show our love for Krishna without reservation, but why doesn't he reciprocate with us? Does he enjoy abandoning us in the middle of the night? So we may also think like that. We may think, oh, we're victims. You know, we do so much for Krishna. What does he do for us? Maybe he just wants to see us suffer. Or maybe we just see the process as very mechanical. We're thinking, you know, I'm doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that, but where is Krishna? So the gopis decided, they thought, well, we're not going to directly tell him what our problems are. We're not going to directly get into, you know, our difficulty, but we'll do it indirectly. We'll ask questions in some indirect, paradoxical way. We'll ask something about love. And then when he answers us, we'll know that he's just a rascal. We'll know that he's a cheater. We'll know that we're the victims. It's not our fault. So it says that Krishna had awakened romantic desires in the gopis, and they were reciprocating. They glanced at him playfully. They gestured amorously with their eyebrows. They massaged his hands and feet as they hold him in their laps. Sometimes the acharyas say that Krishna was also massaging their hands and feet. But while they worshipped him, they felt angry. So they didn't want to openly express their anger because they thought, well, if we openly express our anger, Krishna may go away again. You know, he's already took so long to come in the first place, and you know, then he told us to go home, and then he left us, and so, you know, we don't want to risk this again. So they were saying, oh, joy of our eyes, now please give us answers on one topic, dear Krishna. We're ordinary women of Vrindavan. We do not know much about Vedic knowledge, what is right and what is wrong. So they presented themselves like this. They presented themselves as being ignorant, as, you know, well, we're very simple. We don't know what's going on. You know, you can give us the right information. Of course, it wasn't what they were thinking. They were thinking, Krishna, you messed up, and we were doing the right thing, and what's wrong with you, and you know. But they're presenting themselves like this. They're being a little duplicitous with Krishna because, again, they don't want to get him upset and have him leave. So they're saying, you know, we're asking you something and you're very learned. Now, you remember that Krishna and the gopis are all appearing as just village boys and girls. None of them had been to school, but they're having this mood. You're very learned. You know, you're the son of Nanda Maharaj, and so you definitely know what's going on. But that's how they're presenting it. But their mood is that we're going to catch you. We're going to manipulate you and catch you in saying that actually you didn't take care of us. And they wanted to trap the Lord with his own words to show that the Lord is ungrateful. And so they asked him some questions. Okay. So what were their questions? Now this presentation is taken from the verses of the 10th canto, Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book, the commentaries of the Acharyas, and also Ananda Vrindavan Champu. So they're asking him, who's the best, most honest, loving person? Now, they divided their question into three kinds of people. So I said, well, the first kind of person, they're just reciprocating the love of anyone who shows love for them. So someone loves them, they love them in return. Someone doesn't love them, they don't love them in return. They're like a mirror. They just respond to how other people treat them. Then the second type of person, Gopi said, they love people even who are indifferent to them. Someone doesn't care, they still love them. And even if someone's an enemy to them, they still love them. So they have love for everyone. And then the third kind of person doesn't love anybody. So first person reciprocates how somebody deals with them, they deal back. Second kind of person loves everybody. And the third kind of person doesn't love anybody. And by describing this in a, you know, Krishna, we were wondering what's the best kind of lover. And what they were really asking is, who are you? So they were saying, dear Krishna, please properly explain this matter to us. You're the most knowledgeable among all moving and non-moving entities. Please consider and give your reply. Now, it's interesting that the gopis are thinking like this, because generally we hear that the residents of Vrindavan don't know Krishna's position as God. But here they seem to be addressing him as God and a God-like quality. So our acharyas explain that when the residents of Vrindavan are separate from the Lord, they remember to some extent that he's God. When they're with him, they forget. And you could say, well, the gopis are with him, but they're separated by their anger. So they're not really fully with him. So what were the gopis really asking? They're saying, do you have love for us, indifference, or enmity? We don't know which is which. They were thinking, well, if you have love for us, maybe it's conditional love. No, it can't be conditional love, because if you had conditional love, then you would gratify those people who would help you fulfill your desires and you wouldn't neglect them. But you tried to kill us by separating yourself from us, so that's not conditional. Well, maybe you have unconditional love for us. No, well, that's not true, because you abandoned us in the middle of the night in the forest. And even though you knew how distressed we were, it didn't bother you. You weren't bereaved about it at all. Well, maybe you're just indifferent. Maybe you just don't care. Well, that's not true. You do things to make us happy, and you do things to make us unhappy. Maybe you're our enemy all the time. No, that's not true. You do a lot of things that show that you love us. Maybe you're against us because we didn't act properly. Well, no, we didn't do anything bad to you, and still you've been inimical to us. So we may also try to put Krishna into this kind of category. We might try to say, well, Krishna, you're like this, you're like this. We might try to analyze him by our material conceptions. And when we become confused and bewildered like the gopis did, we need to talk to Krishna. We need to have regular conversations with the Lord in the heart and come to him and ask him for clarification and ask him to help us with our understanding, right? Krishna says, Jnana Dipena Bhashrita, says, I will illuminate their heart with the torchlight of knowledge. Okay? So the gopis ask these questions, and then Krishna answers. And so we also may be in a similar position. We want to understand the nature of love, right? We get bewildered, we get confused, you know. What is real love? What are real relationships? What are our motives? What's the motives of Krishna? And we often feel frustrated in our loving relationships with others and in our loving relationships with Krishna. Now, Krishna is going to take the three kinds of persons that the gopis talk about: those who love those who just love them, who just reciprocate, those who love everybody, and those who love nobody. And he's going to expand those three into 9. So he's going to make it 9 types of person. Okay, so we can sing these together again. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Mito Bhajantiye Sakya Swartaikanto Jayam Hite Natatra Soridam Dharma Swartam Tadinanyata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, so-called friends who show affection for each other only to benefit themselves are actually selfish. They have no true friendship, nor are they following the true principles of religion. Indeed, if they did not expect benefit for themselves, they would not reciprocate. Bhajanta vyajito yevai karuna pitaro yata dharmonira pavadotra soridam cha sumajjama. My dear slender-waisted gopis, some people are genuinely merciful or like parents naturally affectionate. Such persons who devotedly serve, even those who fail to reciprocate with them, are following the true faultless path of religion, and they are true well-wishers. Bhajatopina vaikechid, bhajancha bhajata kuta, atmarama yata kama, akritagna guru druha. Then there are those individuals who are spiritually self-satisfied, materially fulfilled, or by nature ungrateful, or simply envious of superiors. Such persons will not love even those who love them. What to speak of those who are inimical? So Krishna was giving an answer that we said expanded on what the gopis said. It also had some humor in it, and the taste of it could revive a person from death. So now we're going to look at these 9 different kinds of relationships. The first is the people who reciprocate the love only of those who show love toward them. So Krishna said, oh dear slender-waisted gopis, people who show affection for each other only to benefit themselves are actually selfish. They have no true friendship. Indeed, if they did not expect benefit for themselves, they would not reciprocate. Krishna says these are like merchants. You know, when we go to a store, we're not usually, unless we, are friends with the shopkeeper, we're not usually going there out of love for the shopkeeper. We're going there to buy something. And we're trying to get the best deal, right? If we find something's on sale, oh my goodness, instead of $100, it's only $70. So we don't go to the shopkeeper and say, are you sure you can sell it for $70? I mean, are you going to be making enough money on this? Is that going to be okay? Look, I'll give you $120 for it, right? We don't do that. But we're thinking, I'm going to just give whatever I get, and I'm also trying to give a little less, right? So Krishna says there's no love. It's just a business dealing. It's just a business dealing. Now, we kind of intrinsically know the difference between a business dealing and a loving exchange. Right? If you're going to eat at your grandma's house after the meal, you don't say to her, so what do I owe you for the meal? 300, 400, right? I mean, you might bring a gift, but you're not doing it as an exchange. It's a social interaction. But even in our social interactions, we may actually be calculating like that. Like there was this very popular book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And he talked about how men and women keep score. Now, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but the concept of keeping score. I did this, and then you did this, and you did this. And I did this, and you didn't do this. And calculating like that, right? I had someone say this to me in the last few months, well, you haven't done such and such, which actually I did do. But they say, you didn't do such and such, and I've done so much for you. I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and you didn't even do that. And how do we feel when someone talks to us like that? I immediately felt yucky, kind of frightened actually. And I was like, well, wait a minute, I didn't realize that this was a score thing. I thought we were friends. And now I'm supposed to feel guilty that you've done more for me than I've done for you. And actually I have done those things for you. Maybe you just didn't even notice. And we get into this kind of relationship. It means that it's a merchant relationship. Now, Krishna says very heavy things about this kind of merchant relationship. He says there's no permanent dharma, there's no prema, no feeling of friendship, no happiness, no religiousness. And I think the heaviest thing he says is even those without a tinge of loving affairs are better than these merchants. Now, I think this is very heavy because my own belief is that the vast majority of our human relationships are in this category. That even when we say we love someone, even when we say we care for somebody, we're calculating it. Now, how can we tell that we're in a merchant relationship? If we get angry, upset, like when this devotee said to me, I've done all these things for you, and what have you, you were supposed to do this and you didn't do it, but I've done all these things for you. And if in me a feeling came up of indignation, it didn't actually, what came up for me at that time was fear and confusion. I thought, I didn't think we had that kind of a relationship. But if what comes up is indignation, and well, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I've done so much, and what have you done? Right? Whenever, or when we find that we feel the other person hasn't reciprocated properly. Anytime we have these feelings, oh, I've done this, and what have you done? And how are you grateful? Now, what's wrong with you? Don't you know to be grateful? Don't you know everyone should be grateful? When we go to that place, when the relationship doesn't go the way that we want, then we know that we're in a merchant relationship. So it's very hard to tell when everything's going nicely, but when things go bad, if we go to this kind of calculation. And Krishna just really condemns this. So that's the first category. The gopis had one category and Krishna kept that as one category. Those who just reciprocate what they get. Now we have the gopis' second category, those who show affection even to those who are indifferent or those who are inimical. And Krishna divides this into two. So he divides this into pure devotees who love everyone, even if the people don't care about them or even if the people are their enemies. And then family members, particularly he mentions parents. But this would apply even many times between brothers and sisters or between a husband and wife or so forth. But Krishna gives this the example specifically of parents who love even those who don't reciprocate with them. So Krishna says about these kind of relationships that here dharma and prema are lasting. And what's the symptom of this? The symptom of this is that the happiness and distress of those they love are like their own. You know, when we do something for someone and what we do makes them happy, and even if the person doesn't acknowledge what we did, even if the person doesn't reciprocate with what we did, we don't need that. All we need is to see that they're happy. You know, I know that you're happy, and that's enough for me. We don't need any kind of acknowledgement at all. And when the other person is unhappy, we feel unhappy. There are several places where Srila Prabhupada makes this the criteria for whether a relationship is material or spiritual. So there's a number of places where Prabhupada will say that in material relationships, then if someone else is happy, we become unhappy. And if someone else is unhappy, we become happy. He said we might not want to admit it, but it's a fact, right? We want other people to have money, but we want to have a little more. We want other people to have, you know, a beautiful spouse, but we want ours to be a little bit more beautiful. We want other people to be intelligent and knowledgeable, but we want to be a little bit more intelligent and a little bit more knowledgeable. So, you know, we really don't want anybody to be at our level or exceed us. And if they do, we become upset. And when people are suffering, we're like, oh yes, they're suffering. So that's a materialistic relationship. And a spiritual, the mark of spirituality is when we see other people suffering, we feel it like it's our suffering. And when we see other people happy, we feel it like it's our happiness. And if we've contributed to their happiness, that's wonderful. But our satisfaction is in our love for them, not what they do for us. And if you can hold that thought, because it's going to come up again at the end of these verses, that the real happiness is in my love for you, not what you do for me. So there's two categories here. The first is pure devotees, like acharyas say, like Prahlad Maharaj, who loved even his father. And his father tried to kill him, and he still loved his father. He still was his father's well-wisher. He wanted his father to be liberated. And Krishna says that this question of the gopis about those who love everybody, it's as beautiful as your beautiful waist. He says, Suma Jama, you're very beautiful in the middle. Prabhupada says women are beautiful if they have very thin waists. And so Krishna was saying your very thin waists are what are part of your beauty, and this middle question of yours is also very beautiful. And you are in this category. The Lord was indicating here that you gopis are in this category, because even when I made you wait for so many years, even when I tried to send you home, even when I left the Ras Leela, even when I don't reciprocate with you, you still love me. And he's hinting here, he'll make it clearer later, but he's hinting here that my purpose was to glorify your love for me. So this is the mood of the pure devotees, right? Like it says in the Ishopanishad, the one who sees the Lord everywhere and sees everything in him never hates anyone nor any being. This concept of universal love. And then the other part of this category, of course, are family members. So that's not as elevated as pure devotees, because family members, especially parents, they're loving their children because they feel that their children are part of them, right? The child grows in the mother's body, it's fed from the mother's body, And hating your child or being inimical to your child, it's like being inimical to your own hand, you know, being inimical to your nose. It feels like the child is part of you. And because the child comes from the father's body, it's also like that. The father's thinking, this child is an extension of me. So having love, having this sort of unconditional love for someone on the bodily platform is not at the same quality of that of pure devotees. And of course, we see many times in a family, it's not like that. Many times in the family, it is conditional love. You know, it's you only get love from your parents if you become a doctor, or you only get love from your parents for this or that. So it isn't always unconditional, but we have this tendency as parents particularly to have unconditional love for our children. And again, we see this, it's not only something that parents have, it can happen between friends or other family members or so forth. So this is a material example of unconditional love. You know, your child can be a criminal in the jail and you still love them, right? They don't talk to you for 20 years, they're a drug addict, and you still love them. Then the gopis talked about ungrateful people, and Krishna divides this up into 4 types. So the first type is the Atma Arama, someone who's satisfied in themselves, that within, they already feel they have everything. They may be Brahman realized, and they just have no interest in loving affairs. It just doesn't, they have everything, and they appear indifferent to the world, but that is because of their bliss within. The next category of the people who don't love anybody are the Aptakama. So, well, the Atma Arama are those who are spiritually enlightened. The Atmakama are those who can get whatever they want, so they don't need anybody. So they want external enjoyment, but all their desires are satisfied. You know, maybe they're mystic yogis who can get whatever they want. Maybe they're like Jeff Bezos, who has $500 billion, and they just already have everything. They can fulfill all their desires, so they don't need you to love them, they don't need you to hate them, they really just don't care. They're able to get whatever they want by themselves. Then we have the Akrita Gyan. So these people, they're fools. They're foolish people. They want to get pleasure from others. So the Atmarama and the Aptakama, they don't care what anyone does for them. But the Akrita Gyan, they want to take pleasure from others, but they just can't see what others have done from them. All they see is what they give. They don't see what other people give. And I'm sure that, you know, we've met people like this, hopefully. We haven't been a person like this, where, you know, someone who just doesn't notice. They just don't notice. You know, you can do things for them and do things for them, and they're so self-absorbed. So they have an innate capability to reciprocate others' love, but they're distracted by sense objects, and they just don't help anybody who helps them. They're just ungrateful. I think, you know, the people they call narcissists are in this category, but even if one doesn't have like some kind of a psychological designation, but this concept that, you know, it's all about me and what you can do for me, and I really don't have any affection for anyone but myself. So that's a foolish person. They want to be loved, they have the ability to do it, but they're just so foolish. They just don't understand that anyone is doing anything for them. Then we have the Guru Druha. So there's several types of Guru Druha. So this is worse than the fool. The fool is just kind of blind, whereas the Guru Druha is cruel to those who've been kind to them. So we have the Guru Druha type 1, when there's a cause for hatred. So maybe someone who's done a lot for us has also insulted us or also cheated us or also hurt us in some way, and then we become ungrateful. You know, a person who just sees, oh, you did that one negative thing, and they don't see any good. So that's the first kind of guru druha. The second kind of guru druha is where there's someone who only does good for them and they hate them. So there's no cause. The person has only done good and they just hate them anyway. It's interesting about this. So many years ago when I was running a Gurukula, I noticed something funny about all of the families who were very critical and very difficult to work with. And I noticed that all of those families were families for whom the school had really gone out of their way for, had really bent the rules for them or done them some favor. Now, a lot of people we'd done favors for, we're grateful. But all of the difficult people were people we had done favors for. So not all the people we had done favors for were difficult, but all the difficult people were people we had done favors for. And I was trying to figure out, why is that? And I concluded that sometimes we hate the concept of being indebted. You know, if we feel that someone has done for us, and I haven't done enough back, you know, it kind of comes from this merchant mentality. So if I'm thinking, well, I haven't really paid for what I've gotten, then I may hate that person for putting me in an uncomfortable position where I feel I owe them something I can't give. Then there's the Guru Druha type 3. They don't just hate those who've done something good for them, but they actually harm them. So this goes from just an emotion and an attitude to actual action. So they harm their benefactors. They're disloyal in a very tangible sense. They're a betrayer. They commit treason. So here's a summary of the 9 persons that Krishna expands from the Gopis 3. So we have the selfish business exchange. Then in selfless giving, we have the pure devotees and family. Among those who are indifferent, we have the self-satisfied spiritualists, the materialists with all desires fulfilled, and the ungrateful foolish people. Then among the indifferent people, we have those who hate with some cause, the inimical people, those who hate with the cause, those who hate those who protect, and those who actually injure those who are loyal. So Krishna takes and really describes here all 9 types of possible relationships. So we need quite a bit of honesty at looking at this list to say, well, what am I like? You know, how do I relate with others? You know, what category am I in? Am I generally in the pure devotee selfless category, or do I often just have business exchanges or indifference or even being inimical? Now, as Krishna is explaining these types, the gopis were wondering. They said, so how are you indirectly answering us? Because you're not a selfish materialist, you're not a merciful devotee, you're not our parents. So I guess you're ungrateful. Which of the ungrateful people are you? So now Krishna explains his own actions. After talking about these 9 kinds of people, now he's going to talk about himself. So again, if we can say these verses together. Naham tu sakyo bhajato pijantum bhajantamisam anuvritti vrittaye yata dano labda dane vinashte tachchintayanyam nibrito naveda. But the reason I do not immediately reciprocate the affection of living beings, even when they worship me, O gopis, is that I want to intensify their loving devotion. They then become like a poor man who has gained some wealth and then lost it, and who thus becomes so anxious about it that he can think of nothing else. Evam madarto jitalokaveda swanam hivo mayanuvrittaye bala Maya paroksham bhajatati rohitam mashuyitam marhata tat priyam priya. My dear girls, understanding that simply for my sake you had rejected the authority of worldly opinion, of the Vedas and of your relatives, I acted as I did only to increase your attachment to me. Even when I removed myself from your sight by suddenly disappearing, I never stopped loving you. Therefore, my beloved gopis, please do not harbor any bad feelings toward me, your beloved. Naparayeham niravajya samyujam swasadukrityam vibudayusha piva yad madbajam durjarage hashin kala samrishtadva pratiyatu sadhuna. I am not able to repay my debt for your spotless service, even within a lifetime of Brahma. Your connection with me is beyond reproach. You have worshipped me, cutting off all domestic ties, which are difficult to break. Therefore, please let your own glorious deeds be your compensation. So for each of these 9 types, Krishna is going to say, I'm not that type, but I am that type. I'm not, and I am. And then I'm something else altogether. So the first type, the merchant, he says, I do not immediately reciprocate the affection of those who worship me. So I'm not that type. He said, but I also am that type because I'm always responding, even if I'm not present. Just like I say, yeyatamam prapajante, I respond to people as they respond to me. So I'm not that merchant, and yet I am. So I'm not the second type that shows compassion to everyone. Here's a picture of Krishna with Arjuna and Duryodhana. So Krishna showed affection to Arjuna, not to Duryodhana. So he says, I'm not the second type. I'm not kind to those who are indifferent or inimical to me. And yet, I am the second type. I'm as merciful as you are. I worship even if the object of my worship does not respond. Krishna says, Suridam Sarvabhutam. So he's the friend of everyone. He's the friend of those who are indifferent to him. He's the friend of those who are inimical to him. Then he says, I'm also not the 4 kinds of people who don't care. So as far as Atmarami and Aptakami, as Narayana, I am Atmarami and Aptakami. As the son of Nanda Maharaj, I'm neither of these. So I'm not Atmarami. I'm not just satisfied and absorbed in meditation. So as Narayana, I'm Atmarami. I'm completely satisfied in myself, but as Krishna, I'm not. I become attracted by your love. Yes? And also, you could even say I'm not Atmarami because I'm the benefactor of everyone. So I'm satisfied in myself, and yet I fulfill the desires of everyone. Eko bahunam yovidadati kama. So how can you say that because I'm satisfied in myself, I don't care? I'm satisfied in myself, and yet I care. Then Aptakami. Right? In one sense, as Narayana Aptakami, I can fulfill my own desires. I have no unfulfilled desires. But it says that because the devotees love me, I feel the need to protect and maintain them. Right? He feels nothing, but yet he feels that, oh, I have that desire. I want to love his devotees. So I am Aptakami because I have unlimited self-sufficient opulences, but yet I give up my position as the Atmarama and Aptakama in order to have desires for the service of the devotee. So I am and I am not. What about a Krityajna, just some foolish person? So you could say, well, I'm a little cowherd boy, I'm uneducated, but as Narayan, I'm Krityajna. I know everything. If you say, well, as a little cowherd boy, Krishna has no schooling. So, he doesn't know how to be grateful. He doesn't know how to reciprocate. But Krishna says, Patram pushpam pulam toyam yome bhakta prachiti tadaham bhakti paritam ashnami troyatatmanaha. It says that one who just says my name, like a Jamil saying Narayana wants to call his son. So you can say as a little cowherd boy, he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know how to be grateful. But yet, he responds even to a little water, even to one leaf, even to one saying as his name. Now, is he a Guru Druhi? He says, well, I am a Guru Druhi because I left you in the forest in the middle of the night. But I'm not Guru Druhi because I came back. So I am a Guru Druhi and I'm not a Guru Druhi. So Krishna's now been through all the different, he doesn't go through the 3 categories of Guru Druhi, but he's going through, according to our Acharya's commentaries, he's going through each of these 9 types and he's saying, I'm not that. Well, but I am that. But I'm not that, but I am that. The Lord walks and does not walk. He's very far away. He's very near as well. Everything's within him. Everything's not in him. He's everywhere. He's not everywhere. These paradoxes of the Lord. All right, so now that we know in these 9 categories that Krishna is none of them and all of them, we still have the question, what are you doing? So Krishna talks about the aspiring devotee who's not yet attained prema. And he's saying, when these persons worship me through chanting my name and other means, so I seem not to reciprocate, so they'll become humble. That the devotee will start thinking, everything I've done has been useless. Instead of thinking, I've chanted so many rounds, I've offered so much incense, I'll think everything I've done has been useless. I'm an offender. I haven't gotten any mercy. I'm unfortunate. And in that way, their love grows free from any lust and anger. It grows free from any merchant mentality. And Krishna is saying, according to our acharyas, that seeing them suffer in lonely places, I feel 1,000 times more pain than they do. And their prayers amaze me, but their hot tears scorch my heart. Their faint of despair causes me to swoon. Still, for their sake, I wait in silence. I endure it all to ripen their love. Like we're looking at a tree or a plant and waiting for that fruit to ripen. We don't want to pick it before it's ripe. So, we may be anxious for that peach, anxious for that apple, but we're waiting for it to ripen. Then Krishna talks about the devotees who have attained prema. He says he wants to intensify their love. So this is the kind of relationship all of us want. We all want a relationship with someone where our love for them, their love for us, keeps growing and growing, right? People get all mushy-eyed and sentimental about some people who've been married for 70 years and they still dance with each other on the dance floor and look lovingly into each other's eyes. And this idea that our love will increase. It's said about Maharaj Priyavrata and his wife Bahirshmati that their love for each other was always increasing. The same with Usha and Aniruddha. So even for those who've attained prema, Krishna is always trying to have that love increase. And here he gives the example of getting wealth and then losing it. So if you've always been poor, you may want to be rich, but if you suddenly get money, you read sometimes about people who buy a lottery ticket and they throw it away before they've realized that they've won the lottery. And once they win the lottery, they're going crazy trying to find it. So once you've lost wealth that you've gained. And of course, Narada Muni exemplifies this in the Bhagavatam. He sees Krishna once and then he's just constantly looking, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? The love just gets deeper and deeper. Then Krishna makes the point that to the gopis that you're not in either of those groups. how Krishna apologizes. Says, I've done something very regrettable. It was improper. There's never been any devotees like you in the past, in the present, in the future. He said, I cannot increase or decrease your attachment for me at all. Not by one atom, not by a huge amount. So my purpose wasn't to increase your love. My purpose, and we mentioned this previously, my purpose was that I wanted to show all the other bhaktas your glory of love, how exalted your love is. I separated myself from you, not to hurt you, but to glorify you. And he says, actually, I wasn't away from you. I was right there, and I was enjoying hearing you talk about me in my absence. You know, we may enjoy hearing someone else talk about us in our absence, or maybe we don't, depends on what they're saying. But Krishna is relishing how do the devotees, right? Machchita Machchita Pranam Bodhiyantas Paraspara Kathayantas Chamam Nityam Trishanti Charamaticha. Krishna is enjoying how we're talking about him in his absence. And then he says this very famous verse, Naparyaham, I cannot repay you. He says, you gave up all your family connection to serve me, but I didn't give up my family connection to serve you. So I can't actually do this. I can't reciprocate with you. Please be happy with your own service. Now, we brought this up before that the middle category of persons, those who love regardless of reciprocation or inimical or indifferent, they're happy with their own love. And so this is the kind of loving relationships to have, that I don't need the other person's reciprocation with me in order to feel fulfilled. What's fulfilling me is my own love, my own sense of love for them. And having that mood conquers the merchant mentality, and it conquers the inimical and indifferent mentality. If I love being in love with others, I love giving to others, regardless of, I don't need something external. That feeling of being in love with them and loving them is enough. So the gopis started to think how that Krishna did this to praise us. And this is such a funny ending, how the gopis said, well, you know, we thought we were the victims. We wanted to defeat him. We wanted to criticize his conduct, but we were wrong. We were wrong. You know, we thought that he was wrong by leaving us, and we were trying to criticize him. Now we see that we were wrong. He left us just to glorify us, and we're not that good. We've been defeated by his prema. So Krishna is saying, I've been defeated by your prema. You gave up everything for me. I haven't given up anything for you. And the gopis are there thinking, oh, we've been defeated by Krishna's love. We've been defeated by Krishna's love. So this is, again, the opposite of a merchant mentality. Wow, you love me so much more than I can love you. And the others, oh, you love me so much more than I can love you. And then each party feeling satisfied with their own love. So at the conclusion of this, then the rasa dance goes on. So thank you very much for going on us with this journey through some of the verses of Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 32, looking at how the Lord reciprocates with us.
Thank you so much. Now we'll open the floor up for any questions. You can type it in the chat, or you can also unmute yourself and speak your question. have a question, Mother Urmila.
Okay.
While you were discussing the 9 kinds of persons, I realized that I fell in some of those categories that weren't so very nice. At times, I find myself in making business deals in the merchant relationship. At times, I may find myself maybe not liking people as much as I should in a certain circumstance. How could I address this? I mean, I know the lecture was not specifically on this, but how practically can I work to get better?
Well, I think that many of us, or maybe most of us, in looking at this, will have the same kind of reaction that will say, ooh, ouch. You know, where am I here? And there's really 2 answers to this. Is first of all, we have to work at being truly ourselves, Atmarama, satisfied from within, through our Krishna consciousness, so that I don't feel that I have anything to get from anybody else, that I have everything that I need. But unlike the Atmarama, who's just a Bhajananandi or an impersonalist, we want to give to others just for the joy of giving to others. So the reason we fall into these other relationships is we have a sense of incompleteness, and we have some idea that I need others in order to complete me. And then we fall into this realm of using others. And all these other relationships stem from that. Therefore, Prabhupada said that what looks like lust in this world is often, what looks like love is often just lust. So to work on becoming self-satisfied. And, you know, we're not going to probably do that in the next 5 minutes, but at least we can recognize, I mean, we could if we were surrendered enough, but at least we can recognize, as Prabhupada said, when you're frustrated with, not these exact words, but when you have difficulty with others, it's not due to their lack of Krishna consciousness, but your lack of Krishna consciousness. So whenever we have difficulty with someone, that doesn't mean that we have to live in the same room with everybody. We don't have to live in the same room with murderers and rapists. That's not required. But any feeling of being inimical or any merchant relationship comes from my lack of Krishna consciousness. So at least recognizing that instead of blaming others, which is what we generally try to do. And then, you know, whenever I do feel love for others, relishing that feeling, offering that feeling to Krishna and relishing that and celebrating that. So it's not a question of beating ourselves up for our deficiencies, but just recognizing, oh, that's what it is. Just as an observer, oh, that's what it is. And whenever we get it right, even if just for a moment or two, celebrating it and offering that to Krishna. Okay, we have a question here. You said that Krishna replied that the gopis gave their family up for Krishna, but he cannot do that for them. Why is that Krishna is unable to give up his family life to interact with the gopis? Well, Krishna kind of does too, because he leaves his family in the middle of the night to run off with the gopis too. I mean, the gopis don't really give up their families because they're with their families during the day, just like Krishna is. So he's saying this out of affection. And Krishna doesn't give up his family because he has loving relationships with so many devotees. He wants loving relationships with Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj and Sridham and Subal and the cows. And he doesn't just want a relationship with the gopis, but the gopis also feel that. I mean, Radharani loves Mother Yasoda and she loves her mother Kirtida, you know. So this is the Lord speaking out of affection. So here's someone saying that their babies were looking at the graphics. Oh, very nice. Okay, an impetus for self-healing, very nice. So it's getting kind of late, and Mahalakshmi is going, but for you it's 1:30 in the morning. For you it's really late. So I don't know what you're sighing about. So it's getting really late here. And unlike Mahalakshmi, I don't want to stay up till 1:30 in the morning because I have a class tomorrow morning. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk about Krishna and for sharing this with you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.